So we've known for a while that movie theaters weren't exactly in the best position. Given their reliance on a healthy movie industry, one that has been plagued with strikes and flop after blockbuster flop, theaters have been sweating it out. And because of that, they've been having to think of new ways to bring in audiences, new ways to make money. And apparently, one of those ways to make money is to completely change the movie going experience. Now, of course, Variety calls this upgrading, and perhaps it is on some level. This from Variety. Theater owners plan to spend $2.2 billion to modernize and upgrade movie-going experience. Yes, there will be pickleball and ziplining. The 8 biggest theater chains in the US and Canada announced Thursday that they plan to invest more than $2.2 billion to modernize and upgrade more than 21,000 screens over the next 3 years. The investment will cover everything from improved sound and projection to upgrading dining experiences, plus, in some locations, investing in attractions like pickleball and zip lines. Across the industry, we're feeling that perhaps we've turned a corner. The audiences are coming back to the theaters. There's just a very positive kind of feeling about the future. Michael O'Leary, president and CEO of the National Association of Theater Owners, told Variety. Nothing says that there's a positive kind of feeling about the future, like investing in zip lines and pickleballs at a movie theater. The upgrade plans come as the after effects of the pandemic and Hollywood strikes continue to affect the exhibition business, with summer box office totals running about 13% below last year. In addition, moviegoers often complain on social media that theaters are dirty or have substandard seats or projection. I mean, I'm going to be honest, that's just kind of the movie experience. The floors are going to be sticky. It's just the way it is. O'Leary says theater owners will focus on making sure the common areas, the lobbies, the concession areas are new and fresh and well maintained. It's making sure that the seats are comfortable, and there's a whole range of seating options that are available to moviegoers. Making sure that all of those things exist and that you have good lighting, good signage, but also in the actual auditorium itself that you have great sound and great projection. Now, all this sounds perfectly fine. Better lighting and sound and projection all sound great. But what the hell about the pickleball? Consumers today are very demanding and they want to have a full range of things that they can do in any given setting, O'Leary said. In some cases, that means adding pickleball courts, zip lines, arcades, bowling alleys, and more attractions to keep moviegoers busy at theater complexes, in addition to dining and cocktails. Now, they do make mention of arcades, and for the longest time, movie theaters have been one of the few places that still have an arcade that's not named Dave & Buster. Arcades aren't nearly as prevalent as they were back in the 90s or the 80s. Back then, you could literally go to a Pizza Hut and there would be Primal Rage or Metal Slug. Oh man, I miss 90s Pizza Hut. But then the arcades died. And the only way you could get an experience like that was at movie theaters. But then over time, the theaters started shrinking and shrinking and shrinking the arcade experience until eventually it just became a gotcha machine. And that was if you're lucky. So having these different experiences, they do make sense on a certain level because movie theaters have always been a little bit extra. And honestly, a bowling alley mixed with a movie theater doesn't sound that crazy. But then you kind of go into pickleball courts and you go into zip lines and I'm assuming rock climbing. I mean, I guess it's not the worst thing as long as it does bring people to the theaters. Because, there are some people that don't want to watch a movie. As crazy as that sounds, there are people that genuinely don't want to watch a movie. But maybe they would enjoy playing pickleball, or go bowling, or sit in an arcade for hours on end. There were numerous times when I was a kid, and my parents would take me to the movie theater, and I would just kind of quietly walk out of the theater and play the arcades for 2 hours. Now, of course, there is the fear that these amusements start to overshadow what people initially cared about, which was cinema. Today's consumers rightly demand the best possible experience when they visit our theaters. Operating a theater today is a capital-intensive operation, said NATO Executive Board Chair and CEO of B&B Theaters, Bob Bagby. Bob Bagby. I know what you're thinking, and no, not that NATO. This NATO. This investment of resources is the next step in our industry's ongoing commitment to ensuring that going to the theater requires a unique and special experience for generations to come. B&B Theaters has open locations that include pickleball and bowling, among other activities. So at the end of the day, I'm kind of mixed on how I feel about this. Because on the one hand, this would potentially generate more income for these theaters so that they can stay afloat, especially at times when, Marvel movies and Disney movies in general are flopping left and right. And it's not just Disney, it's, Warner Brothers. It's a lot of these studios that are now having to either downsize or get gobbled up by a bigger media company. We're seeing it happen left and right. And the strikes, while they were important, they were very, very ill-timed. Because the studios used those strikes to start canceling several projects. I think they essentially halved the amount of planned projects that they had. And so after the strikes were done and everyone was like, yay, we won the strike. Reality has now set in that, all your projects are gone. And Hollywood is constantly chasing that sure thing, that billion-dollar dream. They want those billion-dollar films. And so they throw money at the dumbest projects, and they hire people that don't really actually care about making good art. They don't care about making a good film. They don't care about making a good time for people. They just care about their own activism, or they just care about their own ego. And because of that, movie theaters have been suffering. And all of this after COVID. So if it takes building a bowling alley to help bring more people in, then I say yay. But at the same time, the cynical part of me is also looking at this as movie theaters realizing that maybe the movie-going experience isn't going to last that much longer, and they need to pivot away to something else. And so their pivot is, well, let's become a more general amusement. And maybe that's what movies eventually become. Maybe that it becomes part of a general amusement. Not quite an amusement park, but like an amusement facility or complex, however you want to call it. It's essentially a bowling alley and arcade, and here's a couple of movie screens. I kind of hate that future. I would prefer to just have the pure movie-going experience. But with the way Hollywood has been working the past couple of years, the products that they're putting out, and they are very much products. They aren't putting out films. They aren't putting out cinema. And yeah, you can throw a couple of movie titles at me that are cinema, but in the grand scheme of things, the vast majority of what Hollywood's putting out is not cinema. It's a product, it's a brand. Here's the Marvel movie. Here's the Star Wars movie. Here's the Pixar movie. It's all part of a brand. When I was a kid growing up, it wasn't about a brand. The closest thing you had to a brand back then was, oh, it's the movie star. Oh, here's the new Jim Carrey movie. But that was actually more authentic because it was, hey, you're going to see a person, not a brand. And now all anybody really goes to see is a brand. At the end of the day, when these movies become franchises, become brands, they're no longer genuine. They don't really mean anything. It's just, hey, here's how we're printing money. And I think a lot of these movie theaters are realizing that money printer ain't printing out as much money, especially when you consider inflation. Because you can say you have $1 billion movie, but how does it compare to 5 years ago once you bring inflation into things? How's it compare 10 years ago? So yeah, that's my thoughts. Let me know yours down below, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye. Ah! Oh.